Here I'm standing here under the old stage where a couple of weeks ago I shot my first music festival called Roosendaal Open Air. And I'm just doing it from this location because I think it's cool. And also in this episode, I'm just going to explain to you a few things I've learned during the shoot of this entire death metal festival or metal festival. So music, what kind of gear I used, some do's and some don'ts, and a lot of the material I either shot on my little magic camera or some of the shots that I shot from artists and the crowd and the entire event on my Sony A7III with the Sony 70-200mm f4. If you have some tips, leave them below, share your experiences. What kind of gear do you use? What don't you use? Yeah, and this was an outdoor event, so that's the first thing, which is a bit different. So here we go. First thing you have to do if you want to take photographs, and it's a bit noisy here because in the back they're enjoying a party they had last night, so they're still at it. So first things first, if you want to take some pictures at a concert or an event for whatever it is, especially music, you're going to have to deal with either the organization or with a band directly. So you need to get accredited. This isn't that big of a deal. You just punch in an email to the organizers, and before you know it, you get a yes or a no, and they'll ask you, can you share some of your material, agree a price upon it or not, and off you go. So that's very simple. The second thing you need to really start looking at is cameras. What are you going to use? I don't like shooting video of events on my Sony A7III. I know it's fantastic for photography, but I'm really a crap filmer when it comes to handheld and gimbal. I'm really not good at it, so I use my Insta360 1X2, and as my main camera the Sony A7III. I was doubting whether to take the Sony A7R2, but that shoots with minimum 45 megapixels, buffer speeds, everything, you know. I kind of knew in advance from metal concerts it's going to be fast, it's going to be dynamic. So I chose the Sony A7III because it shoots in 24 MB files and it has a buffer speed of 14 frames per second, so you can take a lot of pictures, which thank God that was a good choice. Then one other thing you need to do before you start shooting like a crazy person, go into your Sony settings, into your camera settings, and change the file name. So normally you have for Sony DSFC, whatever it is, change it into whatever. Yeah, the biggest mistake I made is I named everything ROA, as in Roosendaal Open Air, but I should have also, with every band, changed the naming convention, so afterwards in post you can just select it, go, add it. Yeah, the other part which you need to understand is if you're at a festival, you are a participant, but let people do their own things. For bands as well, this stage here, what you see here, was relatively small, so it was really packed with huge speakers, lights, loads of cables on the ground, drum set, all that kind of stuff, and then a little stage for the artists. You don't have the famous pit here because it was very small, so the barrier that separates the crowd from the actual band, so you couldn't really get in front of the band unless you wanted to be indulged in a pogo. Pretty cool, but not really. So I really started looking when I came here, and this is one of the cool things. This was also the first real concert for the metal crowd post-corona. So for a year and a half to 2 years, most people didn't have a chance to really look at or enjoy their favorite types of music. And because it is a very small subgenre, yeah, so it doesn't have like millions of fans in the Netherlands. It's a very small group of people, tens of thousands, but they all know each other. They go back a long time, and what you also see here, and this is what I personally enjoyed, very young people who are way in their 60s and everybody in between. Very relaxed atmosphere. Yeah. Metal has a bit of an image issue. People always think it's like stone crazy people who just want to kill themselves. Not at all. Very fun, very open. The bands were like, they were so happy they could play, but also because there was about 200 people here, which is quite a lot if you look at the size of the entire venue. It's very small, and what the organizers did very well was they kind of did tickets in pre-sale, so you couldn't buy at the door, what you normally can get with this kind of thing. Yeah, it's loud, carries far the music, and then around 8 or 9 in the evening, some people who might want to come in with the wrong intentions would normally show up, and they kind of avoided that by doing everything into pre-sale, of course complying to the local corona registration. So they did that very, very well, and this is something where I really would like to compliment from. Now, for the bands, this is where it gets interesting. Once you start shooting, and it depends on what type of music. Yeah, metal is fast. It's a lot of dynamic, both from the crowd and from the band. So I started shooting in single shot. Yeah, not a good idea. Just put it on burst and let it go. And the great thing about it was I really thought that the 70-200 lens in burst mode, yeah, fantastic. It really delivered on what I was hoping. Yeah, occasionally it would miss focus, but you're shooting so many rounds a second. I came back with 1600, almost 1600 photos. After editing, I have about 200 left, which are okay, and out of that 100 are, let's say, good enough. So I would say that's very fruitful. Another thing is you can focus on the bands, but the crowd is even more interesting because you see so much, and especially because these are not like the Megadeth or Metallicas of this world. These are smaller bands who are passionate, you know, they have quite a cult following in most cases, a couple of hundred to up to a couple of thousand people. Yeah, we had bands called Razor Messiah, Butcher, Oblivion, and my favorite, Rectal Smegma. Oh yeah, in case you don't know what that is, Google it. It's not for the kids. But anyways, what I really saw with this lens is that you can do so much with the 70-200. So for the daylight part, I took that lens, and in the evening, during the golden hour, I took the 24-70 f4 from Sony, which the biggest issue with that lens is, and it's often said, is that it's not particularly sharp in the center, it's quite soft. And I always thought this was a lot of nonsense until I tried it here in golden hour and then slowly going into dusk. And then the f4 people will argue, oh, that's not good enough, it's not, you can't shoot wide open. But I think it's pretty okay, I don't think it's too bad. But the thing with this lens is I got the wide, yeah, it's 24, so I got a bit of a wider field, not as narrow as the 70-200, which I think is great for portraits and everything. But if you want a bit more wider, it does the trick. Yeah, so you've seen a bunch of pictures here flying by. So my own recommendations is, if you go to festivals, this is what you really need to do. Get accredited. Pick one camera body. Most will take two, I will take one, because standing 7-8 hours with bodies, it kind of, you know, gets you tired. Pick one, maybe two lenses. I also had the 20mm with me, the Sony one, I didn't even use it. When it comes to the filming part, yeah, I'm not very good at the cinematic filming thing. I prefer the Insta360s, DJI Osmo Pockets too. That's fine. Take enough batteries with you. With the Sony A7III, I was kind of amazed. I took 1500 pictures and the battery wasn't even at 50%. Pretty awesome, isn't it? But if you have a camera which is less, let's say, jacked up, bring a few cameras like the A6400 or the A7R, two same battery, smaller batteries. You need at least 3 with you, and they're not heavy, so you can easily take them with you. Another thing is, when you get to the venue, try to get as early as possible. Try to speak with the guys who do the sound engineering, with the organizers, with some of the bands. You have the access because you're accredited to backstage. Some bands will not allow you to go backstage, or they don't want to be shot or filmed. That's fine as well. Start mixing with the crowd. Enjoy yourself. Have a beer. You know, you don't have to walk around, but just have a beer. Start talking to people. They'll tell you their stories, especially when you're a photographer. And one thing as well, bring little business cards. I didn't have them. So I'm going to have one of these shirts with all my details on it, but just bring it, because people really enjoy having that little memory, you know, that little moment of joy from those festivals or from that concert you're going to. Another thing is, once you feel your time is up and you're tired and you feel you're not productive, just leave. In my case, I think it was around 9 o'clock from 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's enough. Just go home, enjoy yourself. Share the organizers your pictures, and you're going to be great. Anyways, you've seen tons of material here flying by. I hope you liked this video, and again, share me your tips. If you want to have a bit of a chat, just ping me over the comments, but share your tips, tricks and gears, what you've used. And guys, thank you very much.